You want someone who's going to go in, make the right plays, make really good decisions. He's a really good decision maker. And that's what you really want out of this. To in turn, then you just kind of start to trust him. And so I think that that's what he's done in these first 3 games more than anything, is he's made this fan base trust him.
You're listening to the HawksZone Rundown. All things Seahawks with me, Ryan McMillan. Guys, back on the show today, a familiar face, Dayna O'Gorman joins us after really an exciting win that, we all really just took a deep breath, not even after the first quarter. And I mean, at least I felt this game was in the books that quick. It's been a long time since we felt that as Seahawks fans. But Dayna, I appreciate you coming back on, especially after a win like yesterday, to just talk Seahawks.
I tweeted yesterday, I think it was probably maybe the third quarter, I think it was about the third quarter. I put, this is the most relaxed I've been watching a Seahawks game since the Buffalo game in 2012 when they won 50-17. And it's true. And then a bunch of people reply back, what about the Super Bowl? No, it was Peyton Manning. I was never relaxed during the Super Bowl, right? But it literally was the first time where you're like, I trust what they're doing. It's working. I don't see a dumpster fire in the third quarter. It was just such a nice, big, deep breath to start to see the stuff we thought that they could do, right? And it just made it really fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you mentioned the Super Bowl. I would say after that Percy Harvin kickoff return to start the second half, that's when I was like, okay, it's done, especially with the Legion of Boom. But that quickly in the game. And, and that's the thing, that the biggest takeaway I took away from the game was the fact that a team that came into our house who you knew, look, they played some tough games the first couple of games that the Saints played, but you knew we were a better team and we didn't play down to their level, right? We've seen so many times in the past and a lot of these recent Pete Carroll teams that no matter who it was, it could have been a backup quarterback, it was coming down to the wire. And this to me is a sign of a team that, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Pete teams were not prepared, but I felt like he really had this team prepared going into yesterday.
I think one thing, and I'm a big Pete fan, and so I'm not dissing on Pete either, but I think the difference was a couple of things. I think that going into this game, I think you mentioned it before we were on the air. They never took their foot off the gas. They understood that just because you have a good first quarter, which was hilarious. I don't know how many times I saw yesterday in comments on Blue Sky all over that said, I guess you can win in the first quarter because it'll not defeat. But I think that the difference was it was preparation. It was not overconfidence. It wasn't that, we're better than them, so we don't have to worry about them. Like you said, playing down to the competition. But most importantly, there was a drive in this team yesterday. I talk a lot about vibes when I talk about this team. And there was a vibe there, we are supposed to beat teams that we are better than, and we're supposed to beat them badly. And you could feel that from them throughout the entire game. It was fun because you could see the confidence in the players, but also the determination. I thought it was just so fun to be up 21-0 in the first quarter. I didn't know what to do with myself, Ryan. I was just giddy.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was worried about was I wanted him to throw at least a 50 up there. And I figured when this game got too far to hand, because you knew at some point, even the guys on air were saying, at some point, you're going to rest your starters if you get up to this point, and then you're going to see a lot of just running the football and killing the clock. I wanted them to get over 50. I mean, obviously, what they put out was awesome, but and it's not a reflection of anything else, right? Drew Lock comes in the game and they're gonna run the football. It would have been nice to do a few other things, but that was the only thing. Other than that, I mean, it was you could nitpick it, but it was really flawless, all 3 phases. Why don't we start, because I know you love defense, and we're gonna get to the offense too, because it's obviously such a brand new offense and question marks going in that even after the San Francisco game, I was like, man, there is more questions that have been than answers still at this point. But now we're starting to feel like some of these questions are starting to become answered. But on the defensive side of the ball, I want to start there and talk to you about what you're seeing from this secondary to start, because we had a lot of key guys out. Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love, and even, I know he hasn't really played, but Mike McDonald high on Nick Warrior to be that, maybe
Mm,
that chess piece that we haven't seen yet. But the guys that are stepping up, right? Kendricks, I mean, I don't even think anybody knew who this guy was, before he got there. And all he's doing is making plays. And then
right.
Josh Joe playing at an elite level. What are you contributing a lot of this to early on? I know we're 3 games in, but to miss key guys, I mean, these are huge guys,
Yeah.
and not missing a beat defensively here.
When I talk about when I go on other podcasts and they want to talk about the Legion of Boom, they want to talk about that defensive era being one of the best defenses in the history of the NFL. A lot of times you talk about what the keys to that were, and it was insane talent, wonderful, drafting, just so well put together. But the other word that was I use constantly when I talk about it is depth. They had so much depth and the line. They could rotate players. They could do different packages with different players. They just had the level throughout. It wasn't just your starters. It wasn't, just, your first 3 guys. It was the depth. And I think we are really seeing that again in this defense, especially in the secondary. This secondary has an insane amount of talent that honestly none of us knew it had 3 games ago. We knew that, Job was good and could come in. We'd seen that a little bit from him. I'd heard of Kendrick, but I didn't know him, right? Like he was a practice squad player for the Rams. Like who knew, right? And which they could really use him right now with their injuries. But anyway, oops. But I think that in that secondary, we are really seeing the depth. And I really attribute that to Mike McDonald. He knew what type of players he wanted. He knew what type of players he needed because injuries happen. And that's a smart coach, when you think deep, right? You got to think deep into your line. And so I think that's really what he was doing there. And so we have an overabundance of talent at that secondary level, right? And how much fun is that? You can trust that if someone goes out like they have been in the last couple of weeks with Nick and with Spoon being out, we now are not worried about, did you even miss him yesterday? Well, we don't know if we miss Nick because we haven't seen quite what he can do yet. Like we're waiting for that still. But I really feel like that is coaching. That is finding the talent you need. That is looking for the right guys in these positions. We have to remember Kendrick isn't even playing in his natural position, right? And he's still making these crazy, crazy plays and doing so well. Now, I saw a lot of this yesterday on social media. It's like Kendrick needs the jugs machine. He does have a tendency to drop some of those interceptions, but the fact that he's almost getting them still for a player that, wasn't a starter to begin with is fantastic. And so I love that. I love what's happening in that secondary. It just looks so good. And then you go to the line and Ryan, it just even gets better.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, touch on that line because we weren't touched on that line. I want to go back to the secondary in a sec, but the biggest thing again, I think depth is a key word that you're mentioning because it's the same thing on this line, and I agree. It's all a lot of it is coaching because, like you said, Mike's looking for that specific guy, but then to be able, like a guy like Kendricks, to come in and first of all, Mike's defense is complicated, and then to just be there, like you said, to jug machine Joe. I mean, he is a DB, right? So
Right.
you don't expect him to make every catch, but at the same time, just being all over the field, like his name being called, all these other guys. Talk about guys' names being called. I mentioned it last week as far as felt like every second play, another guy on that front seven was being called, whether it was Leonard Williams or talk about Byron Murphy now getting on the stat sheet, right? We talked about last year. Oh, he's contributing. He's playing good. He's a rookie, first of all, but obviously high expectations with the first round pick. But now he's getting the sack. Now, yesterday was great pressure rate and didn't get home a lot, but guys were all over the place, right? Like lots of QB hits. Mike Morris was a name getting called later in the game a lot too, a guy that was really written off. Talk about the line and how confident are you in this line now? Because in the offseason, we were like, are we that one game record edge? Is that
Mm-hmm.
what we're missing? The Trey Hendrickson, the Micah
Mm-hmm.
Parsons rumors flying around, right? But there's a lot of stuff that comes with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I know it's still early, 3 games in, but what is your assessment and then just your confidence level moving forward for this defense just to really take that next step? Do they need that guy?
That's kind of a complicated question. So let me start with the line first. So when you talk about that secondary, it is really just super complementary to the line, and they're playing well together. Like, we really are getting a good feel for the entire defense. That line, though, I think is what we expected it to be. Not expect, hoped it would be. I think that we are getting the amount of times you hear Big Cat's name, amount of times you hear Lawrence's name, you hear all these. Byron Murphy, I don't know that we can give him quite enough praise simply because of the jump he made. We knew he was good. He was serviceable. He didn't have a huge repertoire last year. Like, there wasn't a huge numbers, but he was in there doing what he needed to do. This year, they talk about the sophomore jump, but sometimes for linemen, offensive and defensive, it takes 3 to 4 years for that jump to really happen. You see that second year jump usually more in like your wide receivers, your running backs, that sort of thing. But the lineman can take a little bit longer. Not for Byron Murphy. He has stepped up and stepped out. He has, I don't know. I heard on Brian Nemhauser's podcast this morning, he has a 25% rate. Oh my gosh. It's not the sacks. It's the pressure rate. Excuse me. Sorry. Pressure win rate. And so he's getting to numbers that are above the guys that we have mentioned, the guys that we wanted to go after in the offseason. He's playing well above that. And I think it all has to do with the complementary nature of that line. The way they are all playing together. The edge rushers, we're not seeing the sacks, but who cares when you're winning by 21 points in the first quarter, right? We also have to remember this. We all said we wanted an edge rusher. Derek Hall has played amazing this year. And granted, three games. We get it. We don't know who a team is till games 4 to 6, but we're almost 4, right? If this who this team is, that's crazy. So I think that they're playing such complementary football that it's allowing everyone to eat, right? Everyone's getting their numbers. But Byron Murphy is a huge, huge part of that. The edge rushers are a huge part of that. And those sacks, they'll get there, I think. It bothers me a little bit, but not terribly, because we also have to remember, I mean, they played the whole game no huddle. They ran. They knew Spencer Rattler was not going to have time. He had to throw that ball as fast as possible. And he's been doing that in every single game that they've played in. And they've played only against the NFC West, right? They played the Cardinals, they played the Niners, now they played the Seahawks. And so that, you can tell, that is how they prepped to deal with this division. And I would love to talk about the whole division a little bit because it's kind of crazy, but it's amazing that they're this tight already, this complementary. This tight can be used different terms, but just 3 games in, I think that this is the tip of the iceberg. And as long as, fingers crossed, no injuries, all that other good stuff, I think they're just going to get better and better. And we're going to start to see the production from the edges that we want to here eventually.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that. You mentioned 3 games in, and the biggest thing that people talked about with this defense is most of the guys are returning. Like, yeah, you brought in DeMarcus Lawrence and you drafted Nick Emmanwori, but the majority of the defense were here. And then you think back to last year, there was a few games where, Mike even said, we haven't even broke open everything I want to do. So even if you look back from a year ago with this defense, and again, a lot of the familiar faces on that defense, what's the biggest thing you're seeing now from this defense collectively as a whole that, say, I don't know, game 3 of last season that just wasn't there, or you were like, did we make the right decision? Because you heard that a lot. Like, is this the right move? Even though we were 3-0, it didn't feel like it did, 2-1 here, right? What's the biggest thing you're seeing that's different?
It wasn't a solid 3-0. It was a thank God we're 3-0, right? Like, there is a difference, for sure. But I think just pure comfort in the scheme, understanding what Mike Macdonald expects from these guys, what he's looking for. You said it. It's a very complicated defense. And so it takes time. And we saw it in the second half of last year. I will tell you, Ryan, I was listening in the offseason and someone, I don't remember, it was some national media member, and they were going on and on about the Seahawks, about how good their defense was in the second half of the year. But we should not expect that to carry over, because when it's good the second half of the year, it means that they are still going to have all these problems at the beginning of the year. And so to not get too excited, sorry, the exact opposite has happened, right? They just literally carried that momentum from the second half of last year, brought it into the beginning of this season, without the hiccups that we still saw sometimes, right? Sometimes during last year, especially those, let's say the first 4 games, you would see miscues, miscommunications. They would be like, I thought you were here. And there's a lot of finger pointing going on because it was hard. It was new. They didn't quite know where they were supposed to be, what they were doing. There's a trust level that comes with the offensive line and the defense that you have to trust where the other players are going to be without looking at them, without worrying about them. That trust wasn't there until the end of last year, and then there was still some hiccups. This year, they got it. Like, there is just absolutely, I think it proves over the off season, this defense spent a lot of time studying. They spent a lot of time in training camp working on these schemes so they could come in prepared to just roll from the beginning. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. And once again, all credit to the coaching staff and to the vets. I mean, I think we have to give, Big Cat he's leading this defense. He's like running it. And it feels like maybe that leadership was missing maybe over the last 5 years. And now we have that leadership plus insane coaching. It's just all good.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, because I think you got a really good mix right now of leadership, veteran leadership, and young talent. Like, it's right up the middle, right?
Yep.
Big Cat, Ernest Jones.
Oh, yes.
You mentioned that.
Sorry, I shouldn't have skipped Ernest. I love Ernest.
Well, there's just a lot of guys to get to right now, right? I mean, you talk about last year, talk about thing I forgot about when I said, hey, what's the difference between this year and last year? Your linebackers were completely different, right? You had Dotson and Baker, and how quickly Mike Macdonald, like you mentioned earlier, he knows exactly the kind of guys he wants. They were out the door. Here comes Ernest Jones that just transcended the defense, but he's also a leader. And you have Big Cat who's leading it up there. Even Jaron Reed. I know he doesn't have the impact on the field, but talk about a guy that, Byron Murphy taking him under his wing. That's huge, right? And for Byron to take that next step collectively. And then on the back end, Julian Love, right? To pair up with a young, talented guy in Kobe Bryant that everyone's high on now. So to me, it's right now, the timing feels like we're getting there, because you got such young talent, but that veteran leadership as well on this side of the football, which really is going to be the identity of this football team now. But how, like you said, tip of the iceberg, how good can we be? And if we all believe in this coaching staff and Mike Macdonald, I mean, why not be the top 1-2 defense coming up? I mean, we're close. Where do you think we are right now? Numbers aside, just like you said, 5 feel. Are we in that 5 yet?
Yeah, we're a top 5 defense. They've only allowed less than 17 points in every game.
Well, yeah, for sure.
And
so the way they're flying around too, right? It just has that feeling.
Yeah, it really does. And the interesting thing, I think, is that there are places they can make adjustments, right? There are improvements that needed. They still are having, they're doing great on stopping the run. I mean, you can tell that was a huge focus after last year, right? Like they learned their lesson on that last year, but there's still definitely places, these quarterbacks are throwing just to get to the 10-yard line. They're not huge plays, they're not explosive plays, but they do let them kind of dink and dunk. They sometimes, the tackling, sometimes I'm like, oh, wrap up. That's basic, right? Like there's little things, but again, we not have our starters out there. And it's the beginning of the season. So there are definitely spots that I think that they could tighten things up, and then, it could be real pretty again real soon. So it's like, I'm already so pleased. I said that my hope for this team was to be a top 7 defense. I thought if they could be a top 7, that showed so much improvement that would just be huge. For over the whole season consistently, not the last 4 games, not the middle for it. I mean, consistently, right? And so that they're well and above that right now, and seem to be just going up.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I one last question on the defense too.
Mhm.
I know he's taking a lot of heat, especially because it's such a carryover, and I want to bring him up to you.
Mhm.
And the end of the Niners game was a disaster. But Riq Woolen, we haven't heard too much the last couple games, which is a good thing. But because we have so much depth, and because we believe in this coaching staff, where does that kind of play against him as far as coming up at the end of this year if we just look ahead with Reek in particular, because he's in a contract year and because of the
Mhm.
tools that he has, a lot of people expect him to demand a lot of money. Where do you see him fitting in
Mm.
at the end of the day? I know, again, we're jumping ahead, but 3 games
Speculating, yeah.
in, but just the way you see some guys like Job and Kendricks, and I know Reek brings a different tool set,
Mhm.
but again, if all of a sudden that price tag gets huge, are the Seahawks more willing to say, "Hey, look, we got a guy, Mike McDonald here, that can take guys from this level to that level just based on his system and coaching."
Mhm.
What are your thoughts with Reek?
I am one of the few Seahawks fans who's a Reek supporter. I
Okay.
like the way Riq Woolen plays. I know that people were real mad at him about the San Francisco game. Mistakes. It was the first game. It was San
Yeah.
Francisco. It was all the things that made it the spotlight just even bigger on him, right? I really like Riq Woolen. I like the way he plays. I think he's a talented player. I don't know that he is someone who would be easily replaceable. I think he has a very special skill set that works well within the system. If not, they would have got rid of him this year. They would have traded him, they would have done something, right? I also don't know that he'll ask for an insane amount of money. If he has a good agent, he won't, because he has made mistakes. He has had runs where he didn't look great. Granted, it was a couple years ago now, and people are holding on to that with all their might. But I think that players make mistakes. He has a higher amount of focus on him. So if he has a good agent, I don't think his agent's going to be like, we're going to break the bank with this one. If he wants to stay in Seattle, I think that they will figure out a way to make that happen, because again, the depth is so important. We've just had 2 games without Witherspoon. What if we had traded Riq Woolen at the beginning of the year? That they have to have that. In a good team has those insurance policies. So if I don't know. Now, if he does go in, ask for an insane amount of money, and he's just chasing dollar signs, I also am a firm believer in get your money, because their entire career could be over tomorrow. And so get the money while you can. So if that's what he's looking for, then more power to him. Off you go. But I don't know, especially with the trajectory of this team right now. And I think that they're slowly working their way back up. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up staying. And I think Mike McDonald likes him enough that they would try and figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah, those are all fair points. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's yeah. I never looked at it like that, and like I said, like, and I'm not a Reek hater or
Yeah.
this and that, but I'm just looking at, like, to the standpoint of how do they view it based on some of this
Mhm.
elevation, and I'm not saying they're better than Reek Woolen, but it'll just be interesting. Like you said, it could go
Yeah.
either way.
Right.
If he wants his bag, then hey, more power to you. Maybe
Mhm.
you're playing for the Carolina Panthers next year, right?
Right.
But if you go team friendly, then sure, because yeah, I mean, there's no denying his physical talent and
Mhm.
skill sets, right? So yeah, and like you mentioned, Devin Witherspoon going out, man, that could look different if now you don't have Reek, you don't have Devin, right? So
Mhm.
though that's fair point. I want to move over to the offense now
Mhm.
because as exciting as defense is, it's a little more predictable as far as, yeah, we think it's going to be a pretty good defense. How good,
Mhm.
we'll see. But this offense coming into this year has so many question marks because it's practically brand new. You lose the big time guys that we've talked about a gazillion times that everybody knows by now.
Mhm.
But then, now JSN's taken the lead role. Cooper Cup, often injured the last few years. What's his deal? You cut MVS, and you have this
Yeah.
young kid, fifth rounder. But I want to start at the quarterback spot
Okay.
because what I've seen so far from Sam is just a confidence and poise. And I'm really happy what I've seen from Sam Darnold. I loved the move when they made it because when they had to pivot, and you knew it was on John's mind. John liked him, but they went and got him right away, and you reset the room. And so far in 3 games, I just feel like I like what I'm seeing. I think
Mhm.
he, 14 for 18 yesterday. Numbers aside, he didn't play almost half the game, but the way he dropped that dime in a bucket to JSN, the deep
Mm.
ball, and then the deep ball to Horton, who Horton threw it into a sixth gear. But just great balls. He just feels confident. What's your take so far on Sam?
So once we knew Gino was leaving, and that was not a surprise. I had different reasons, though. I just assumed the minute they announced Pete was going to be the Raiders coach that he's going to want to go play for Pete, and that's exactly what happened. And so we found out later there was a lot more to it, but that's just my assumption. I'm like, oh, Gino's gone, and so we're going to find someone. I was okay with Sam Darnold. I for the options that were out there, that was a good option, right? It's not like we had, some elite quarterback that could, that wanted all of a sudden to change teams. Like, we didn't know that. But with the way Sam had played in Minnesota, granted, he had an amazing coach and he has great weapons, but still there was that consistency. And I think that's something that Seahawks fans were craving. We had seen the hot and cold Gino. We had seen hot and cold Russ, for God's sake, for the last couple of years he was here. And so I think that was, we were looking for someone who's a little consistent, maybe a little beige, maybe a little boring, but consistent was big. And so I was okay with that move. I wasn't excited, but I thought it was going to be fine. I wasn't worried about him when going into training camp. He's a smart guy. He's a smart quarterback. I knew he'd be able to figure it out, but what was he figuring out? I will tell you, Mina Kimes made me real nervous one day on her show. She said that she was talking about Seattle, as she often does, and she was like, Seattle's just giving Kubiak the keys to the kingdom, and I don't think he deserves them yet. I don't know that he's proven he deserves them. And I'm like, oh, should we be nervous about this? Because I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was a good thing. And so it turned out to be a great thing. After that first game, I wasn't so sure. I was a little nervous, but it turned out to be good. And it just takes time. And we as football fans are impatient. We haven't had to be impatient with Sam Darnold. He has really shown that he has this consistent demeanor. We don't have to necessarily worry about him getting picked off in the red zone. We have, you see just this constant consistency out of him. That is what you really want from a quarterback who's not a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen. You want someone who's going to go in, make the right plays, make really good decisions. He's a really good decision maker. And that's what you really want out of this. To, in turn, then you just kind of start to trust him. And so I think that that's what he's done in these first 3 games more than anything, is he's made this fan base trust him. He has proven, I got this. I'm not going to do something completely idiotic to take, to take your trust away. And so I think that that's been most important. Plus, he's played really well. On top of all of that, he's played really well. Is he electric? Does there sparks flying off of him? No, but he's played very well. So I don't think there is any reason for anyone in the fan base to be disappointed other than old priors or old affiliations, because people still real mad about Gino. But I don't think so. He has done nothing but proven that he can be the guy for us to trust to take this team as far as they can go.
Yeah, you mentioned trust. It's a huge word. And consistency. Like that's the thing, because we knew coming in with the Clint Kubiak system that they want to run. So, you get excited when he turn, they do play action. You're like, oh, here we go. Maybe something down the field. Get a little excited because you do miss DK running down the field. But man, you just turn that leaf over, and we had our own little rendition of Sam slinging it down the field on the go route to Torrey Horton. And what I saw from Horton is a 6th gear, right? I know he runs a sub 4.4, but to beat the corner like he did, and because at first I thought maybe there was a little bit too much juice on that, but he just hit him in stride, and Torrey just went and got it, put in that 6th, 7th gear, which was awesome to see. Sam putting on the money, and like you said, and I don't like reverting back to Gino. I don't understand that camp in particular, because I like Gino's time here. I thought it was the first year was a great story, especially coming off the Russ era. You're losing your best quarterback ever, and then to go to Gino, it's like, okay, and then he has a good year to make the playoffs. after that, I just felt like, okay, when is the future coming? And that was kind
Right.
of my outlook. Okay, great. And then last year with the red zone picks, it was enough for me, and I was ready. Okay, I wasn't like, let's pay this guy, and that was
Yeah.
just where I was.
Yep.
So for the Sam, I agree. I wasn't like over the moon, but I was like, could be something different. But
Yeah.
now with the receiving core here, because DK gone, and it's JSN, Cup, and Horton is your whatever you want to call your big three, whatever.
Mhm.
We got to talk about Torrey Horton a little bit. Fifth round pick, obviously has a career game. I mean, he's 3 games in, right? Barely even played the first game. Give me your thoughts as a whole. Talk about Horton, because I want to get your thoughts on Horton just as a player and who you think he can be. And then just your comfort level now with
Mhm.
this receiving core.
So let's start with Torrey Horton, who I saw someone call Scory Horton, which I thought was hilarious because he has 3 touchdowns in 3 games or something. And like you said, he barely played in the first one. He is the perfect example of the diamond in the rough, right? Like this kid he was drafted. I did see after the draft, there was a large amount of people who were real excited about him. Like they were like, yes, this kid is going to be amazing. He should have never made it to the 5th round. And so I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Let's keep an eye on him. And then reports coming out of training camp were this kid is exploding off the field. Like he is who we thought he might be. And then in a couple of different interviews, you heard other players talking about him. And I was like, oh my gosh. So when they did get rid of MVS, we're like, they completely trust this 5th round pick, this skinny 5th round pick. I was a little worried about the way he was built. I'm like, oh, he's going to get hit once and get broken. Like, but no, he's just fantastic. They have to catch him first, right? Because he's so stupid fast. So he has been a wonderful surprise, but not all that surprising because there were a lot of people talking about him. And I think he fits into how they want to use him from what we can tell so far. I still think this offense is very much developing, and I think we're going to see a lot more things coming out of it. But from what we've seen so far, I think that he's being used the way that they want to use him, if that makes sense. You look at the rest of this wide receiver room, and I will tell you, when I was interviewed in the off season, when we talked about it on the Our Turf podcast, I mentioned over and over, we need another wide receiver. We need this wide receiver room is not complete. I don't trust Cooper Kupp to stay on the field more than 2 games. It just was like one, and it's not about him. He's a great wide receiver. He's just broken all the time. And so it's like, I really wanted more. And so going into, they were like, nope, we're good. I'm like, okay, we're going to use our tight ends every single play because we needed extra help. No, it turned out that shockingly, the coaches knew more than I did. And so I think that is this wide receiver room. JSN stepped up to exactly what we needed him to be. We had a conversation on another podcast the other night. Could he have 1,600 yards easily at this point? I don't think anyone would even question if that happened. Cooper Kupp has become, I don't know if he's regenerated, reinvigorated, whatever you want to call it, but he just looks like he's having fun on the football field. And you hadn't seen that from him in the last couple of years. Now, that could have been due to injuries and a few other things, or maybe he just needed a change. He needed something else, right? He wanted to come home. And so he looks just kind of like a spark. And what that does then is that separates out these teams. You can't just double and triple team JSN because he's the only guy you got, right? You have to account for 2 other players. Oh God, you throw a tight end then in there, another player. It's just been really fun to watch, and a huge weight off the shoulders of fans, if you're being really honest, because this wide receiver room is a lot better than a lot of people thought they were going to be. And then you throw in the tight ends, who've been quite a fun surprise too. This offense, at least the passing offense, has been great.
Yeah, no, I mean it's different too, and I think I feel like it's more than a one-dimensional. I know
Yes.
last year was almost a write-off with Ryan Grubb, and we're not going to dive into that, but coming into last year, and sometimes you can get caught up in that too when you got a polarizing guy like DK Metcalf, who I absolutely loved his time here in Seattle. I
Mm-hmm.
still like him, but again,
Yeah.
the focus at the beginning of last year was just feed DK, and it became extremely one dimensional. And then it was, hey, let's mix it up and go this way. The running game never got going, and we just didn't have an identity. It feels like coming in, we sort of know what they want to do, and it feels like they're sticking to it. The offensive line's still a work in progress. The thing I love about it is that we know the cohesive five going into the season, which is already an improvement. So that running game, talk about what you like so far from the running game. I know like there hasn't been like huge numbers jumping off the charts, but the fullback, Robbie Oots, this offensive line, what do you see so far? And where are you seeing that there still needs a bit of work going on there?
The running game, I love that they have stuck to, we're going to run this ball. Like P used to say it, but then it didn't always happen, right? And especially the minute he got a little nervous, we were behind, we're throwing for no reason. And then last year, again, we can't even barely talk about last year. But I feel like they're sticking to it. They're like, no, we said we're going to run the ball. Even if it's not really working, we're going to run this ball. And I like that. I respect that. I think the run game will get better as the offensive line gets better. I think that there are some not huge. This offensive line is already so much better than last year, but there's still some issues. And that could be due to injury, Grady Zabel had his best game yesterday, right? And so he's just now getting warmed up. You guys, he's 3 games into his entire career. So we'll see how that goes. Cross has looked really good. Sundell has played. He's a little hot and cold, but he's he does okay. Abe Lucas is hurt. He's got a brace on his arm. And so I think as this offensive line is better, there's still a lot of room for improvement. And so once that line gets a little bit better at run blocking, the run game will really take off. It is a little strange to me how the first game, Walker couldn't get a yard and Zach Charbonnet looked amazing. The second game was the exact opposite. And then, of course, Charbonnet was hurt in this one. And Ken Walker, he played well. It wasn't like a lights out game, but he played well. But I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line, who, again, is 3 games into their season. So I feel like when it comes to the run game, that as long as they stick with it, as long as they don't panic, as long as they don't say, okay, well, we're behind, which doesn't feel to be a Mike Macdonald trait. He doesn't seem to be a panicker. Pete was a panicker, but Mike Macdonald's not. And so I think that as long as they stick with it, we're just going to see that improve and get even better, especially as we actually use the play action, since we didn't in that first game against San Francisco. We'll see it a little bit more. And then I think it'll start to kind of open up a little bit for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then one final question before we really quickly touch on the Arizona game. I want to talk about just yesterday's home field advantage that has been missing for a long time. Is this what we need to get that ball rolling again? Because people talk about the 12 selling tickets, but at the end of the day, the product hasn't been there at home at all. This felt like a statement game where you can say, hey, look, this is what happens when you come in our house. It was a decisive win, like we joked about after the first quarter. We need more of this, right? Because I think, because then you could say, hey, great, you want to fly in and pay all this money to see your team? Great, they're going to get stomped. And I think that's where we got to get back to, because I don't like hearing the other side of it right now, where people are like, hey, stop selling your tickets. Because I say you got to put a product on the field, because things are expensive. Why would I give up my Sunday and spend all this money if the product's not there? So that's what I want to see. What are your thoughts about really getting this home field advantage back and being that place? Might not be the way it was, but get it close, right?
Could be. It definitely could be. So I was lucky enough to go to the first game. And I was genuinely thrilled to, number one, see that I know on television, it looked like San Francisco took over that stadium, but that's because they were all sitting behind the San Francisco bench. And that's the direction the camera points, right? The rest of the stadium was not like that. It had been the year before. The there was red everywhere. It was my entire section. There was this poor little couple, San Francisco couple, and he kept going, I just moved here from San Francisco. He was trying so hard to get people to not be mad at him. It was adorable. But the rest of it, they were loud and they were excited. And it shook in a way that I haven't felt in a while. And we try to go to at least one game a year, and I just haven't felt that in a long time. And so it was loud. And so I thought, well, it's San Francisco. So we'll see what happens, because people have a tendency to get loud for San Francisco. No, carried over into the Saints game. It was loud, 4 false starts. We haven't seen that in a long time. Granted, it's the Saints and they were going to a huddle, and so that can kind of influence that too. But I really do think the crowd had a huge impact. And according to some of the post-game interviews, it did. The players feel it. And we have to remember as fans that what we do, they feel too. And so I think that when you start playing better, when it starts to be fun to watch your team play again, people are going to go and spend that money. Those season ticket holders are going to keep their tickets and go to these games instead of selling them. And so it was fun. The atmosphere was very fun in that first game. I'm sure yesterday it was a blast from what I've heard. It was great. But I do think that you are 100% right. It all starts with the product on the field. You can't expect fans to spend thousands and thousands of dollars for one game. You have to remember, those tickets are expensive. If you're going to fly in, you have a hotel, you have to stay there for 3 days. It's like a whole thing. If then you're just going to go and be bored. And so this game, I think, is going to do a lot for the other home games. And hopefully we can get that home game win-loss record switched back the way it should be.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well said. Let's fast forward quick over to the Thursday night game. Now it's a short week for the Hawks. But the one advantage I think is that, the fact that that game was over rather quickly, mentally they could rest. A lot of times they say, hey, it's such a mentally draining game that it's more mental than physical on that short week, or even if it's playing another hard opponent. But so I like that aspect going into Arizona, getting ready for that game. But what do the Hawks need to do to keep things rolling and take care of Kyler Murray and the Cardinals on Thursday here?
The NFC West is baffling and so fun at the same time. At the beginning of the season, I said the NFC West is going to be, it used to be the best division in football. Then it wasn't. Now I think it's the most competitive. I don't know if it'll be the best, it's not going to have the highest record, all these things, but they're going to be the most competitive. And we're seeing that, right? We are seeing that within those games. There have been 2 divisional games, Seattle and San Francisco, Arizona and San Francisco, right? I think that the way that these teams are playing each other keeps it so tight that you can tell that they're very comparable in, the way that they play. However, what you can look at is, number one, it's a Thursday night game, but they only have to fly down the coast. It's not like they have to cross the country. I think that's a huge help. 2, exactly what you said, they got a whole quarter off, right? And that's huge in football world. And so if you can take that whole quarter off, that's a ton of rest that they didn't have before. They weren't battling till the last second. But more importantly, this is a very well-known opponent, right? Same quarterback, same coach, a lot of the same defense. And so it's not like sometimes when you go into these games with an entire new coaching staff, you don't know what to expect, that sort of thing. They can watch how San Francisco played Arizona and managed to beat them. That was a low scoring I think at the half, it was 6-6 or something stupid. Like it was just nothing. And so I think Seattle has a little more dynamic to them. And so even though we're going to Arizona, and I get so nervous every time we play in Arizona because someone always gets hurt. And so I'm really worried about that. But at the same time, I have a very good feeling that people are going to learn very quickly. And by people, I mean national media, who has managed to completely ignore Seattle for 3 weeks, that maybe they were wrong. The Rams are a really good team. They played the Eagles very well. San Francisco is a good team, but they're losing people left and right. Nick Bosa's out for the season. And so and now Arizona, they had some huge miscues and they have a bunch of injuries. Seattle might be the team. They might be the one that stirs that pot. And so I think it's going to be really fun to watch. I have a really good feeling about this game on Thursday.
Yeah, no, so do I. I don't know how the Niners I know it's their 3-0. It's just like, how many more guys do they need to lose a game, right? I mean, it's Mac Jones going in there. But again, you mentioned the NFC West as a division. Talk about, and that's the thing. Look at the coaching in this division.
Right.
The Rams, I never wrote them off. I thought they played a great, like the little playoff run they did last year. And it's just like, it comes down to McVay. I mean, just how good of a coach he is. And then that's why we got excited about Mike McDonald, right? Because it's a new
Mhm.
era. Hey, maybe we got our own version of the defensive side of things. We got our own McVay, sort of like just a young, smart football mind, and
Mhm.
to compete in this division, and it's looking that way, right? So that gets you excited. But a lot of good coaching. Shanahan's a
Mhm.
great coach. Gannon's got guys believing down there. So I think you're right. That's part of the competitiveness in this division.
Yeah.
And it's anytime it's a divisional game, it's gonna be tough. Whether we want to say Arizona's the fourth best team and Kyler Murray's not it.
Yeah. I
Uh,
don't know if Kyler Murray is it, but I don't know that they're the fourth best team either. Like,
well,
this
I
division is
agree.
so tight.
It's
Yeah, it's
tight.
just
It's
crazy.
tight. Well, I mean, and some pundits had San Francisco winning the division, and it's like you said, it who knows, the Rams are right there, we're right
Mhm.
there,
Yep.
Arizona will be in the mix, right? So that's what's going to make the game tough, and being a Thursday nighter, yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be tough, but hopefully we can just get out of there, win a divisional game, 3-1, and then we'll be in a really good spot moving forward here. So
Mhm.
that's going to be exciting. But Dayna, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Love talking Seahawks with you. Time flies when we're talking here. But before we let you go, why don't you let everybody know where they could find your stuff, what you have coming up on your podcast as well?
So you can always find me. It's at Dayna OG, DAYNAOG, and then on the Blue Sky, on the Twitter, you can find me all of it because I still call it Twitter. But and then I do the Our Turf Football podcast. Been doing that for I think our 15th season this year. That's every Tuesday night live over on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all the places. And then every once in a while, I join those boys over at Real Hawk Talk to talk about Seahawks over there in the Hawk Blogger group. And then, but yeah, so coming up, we have on Tuesday night, we're just going to kind of go back over 3. We always wait till the 4th. The next week is going to be really interesting because that's when we start to look into these teams and say, who are they? That's the who are they episode, because that's when you kind of start to know. But I also want everyone to know, because I don't know if they do, the Our Turf Football podcast, we also have a Wednesday night show about college football where we have 3 gals who they just break down the college game. They look at the week before and the week coming up. And that's become really popular too. So make sure you check that out also.
Awesome stuff. And all that's going to be in the description, guys. Links will be down there. So make sure you go down there, subscribe to Dayna's stuff. Dayna, always a pleasure. Appreciate it. And I know we'll talk again in the future here.
Thanks, Ryan. It was fun.
All right. Thanks, Dayna.
Bye.
Guys, that was Dayna O'Gorman on the show once again. Dayna's a familiar face, friend of the podcast, and it's always good breaking it down with Dayna, especially defensive side of the football and offensive side of the football. But it's great to get different perspectives. And I know a guy like Riq Woolen's taken a lot of heat over the pretty much ever since his rookie season. I've been a part of giving him some grief as well, but a lot of it is because of what's he gonna want at the end of the year as far as contract wise, and is he gonna be worth it? Because like Dayna said, if this team is ascending to where he thinks it's gonna be, and he can take whatever you want to call a team friendly deal to get into the mix, he does have a skill set and a tool set that really is unmatched. But again, as long as he continues with not making the mental mistakes and plays hard and plays the way Mike wants his guys playing, then yeah, I think there is a place for a guy like Riq Woolen as well. And she's just super excited with this defense and just the way everyone's contributing, flying around with the football. And it's just everyone's getting excited. So and the offense, she mentioned, and I talked about it before in the offseason, this team needs another receiver. And after watching it and seeing how they're, especially a guy like Torrey Horton, and you're saying, hey, like, nah, we're good. We're okay with JSN being the number 1 alpha receiver here because we know he is that. And so, I know he doesn't have the body type like a DK Metcalf or a Justin Jefferson and a AJ Browns, but this guy is a baller, and we are fine with him as our number 1. And then you bring in a Cooper Kupp, and if we see a Torrey Horton emerge and play like he played yesterday, and at least be that number 2 guy, and jump over that Cooper Kupp and be that young emerging receiver, then we could really get excited here in Seattle, especially if this running game gets going. So, and like we said, this offense again doesn't have to light the world on fire, but be that 10, 12 to 15 sort of range. And when this defense becomes a top 2, 3, 4 defense, then I think it's a perfect combination to have success here in Seattle. So guys, make sure you go down, subscribe to this channel, share the videos, like the videos. We're gonna keep bringing the guests, guys. This channel, different look. We're missing one particular guy, but we're still bringing the heat. We're still bringing the guests that you guys love. And again, there's going to be new faces along the ride as well. So make sure you stick around, sub to the channel, share these videos, like these videos. And by the way, links in the description. Like I said, go down, check out Dayna's content, because again, I love having Dayna on the show. She really knows her football. And like she says, she's been doing her pod for over 15 years now. Go down, check out her stuff, give her a sub, and that's about it, guys. We got some other cool stuff coming up on the show this month as well, so make sure you sub, stick around. And that's it for us tonight. Let's go get these Cardinals in Arizona and get to 3-1 and start taking some control here and win this division at the end of the year. So that's it. Go Hawks.